Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be taking a full flight in this lovely Piper Archer 3 from Martha's Vineyard all the way over to Block Island. We'll be trying to follow the real procedures, and the incredible thing is I've made this very flight in this exact class of plane, which makes it kind of fun for me too. So climbing into the Piper, one thing you don't notice is, of course, how incredibly tight this plane is the first time you get into it. And this is a nice one with the nice leather seats and everything, then a little white interior. And I love the fact there's no keys. And that's, I don't know, it always puts a smile on my face. But incredibly for this particular airplane, all the switches that you need are above your head. And the cool thing is when I press W like this, see how you can kind of see what's going on. In the real world, you don't really notice these switches above your head. You're like more like up here when you fly. So it's actually kind of interesting just the way this works. And obviously in VR, it's going to be a little bit different. So let's get this thing going. A nice and easy plane to get started. Looks like we're going to be in the left tank today. So I'm going to go pop this to the left position. If you wonder what I mean by that, you can take a look at what time it is. It's a little after 12. It's lunchtime, actually. And what I'm trying to do is anytime this is on this side, I'm going to be going ahead and using the left tank. Anytime it's on this side, the minute hand, I'm going to use the right tank. So it's good to go. We're going to go ahead and pop that into that position there. One of the things we can do is I can set the parking brake, which it is. It's all set there. All looking good, looking good. Not going to touch that. Don't need to yet. Reaching above my head, so we have start prime battery and a bunch of switches here. So what I'm going to do is pop on the nav light here. I'm going to pop on the right magneto here. Battery, alternator, fuel pump. Sounds good to me. So I'm going to press the prime button for 2 seconds. And that's all it takes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to correct the throttle just a little bit, as you can see here, and we're just going to hold down the starter until it catches. That is nothing what that sounds like, but okay. I'm not going to worry about it. All right, we're going to do 1,000 revolutions per minute, comrades, and we're going to give it a few moments to kind of see, to make sure everything's okay. Plenty of fuel for the flight. That looks good to me. That looks good to me. I'll come up above my head, and I'll go ahead and turn on the other magneto. Purpose of that, of course, is to make sure both magnetos are working separately. Radio master comes on. It beeps a lot. That's fine. I'm not worried about it at all. And we're just going to go ahead and get ready for a flight here. Like I said, we're heading over to Block Island. Kilo Bravo. We're going to do India, and we're going to do Delta, enter. We're going to change VLOC on our CDI to the GPS mode, so it actually tracks the GPS. And you're going to see under MSG, it's going to say set CRS to 267. That means we're going to come over here. We're going to set this to 267. That's an important little thing we have to do here. If we skip that step, it's not going to know which direction we're facing. Let's confirm that that is reading correctly. It looks like about 144, and this is looking about 144, so that's reading beautifully. There's no special devices on this, no autopilot, no altitude hold, nothing along those lines. But what we do have, of course, is our transponder, so we'll get that one all fired up and ready to go. We have a regular radio. A lot of times you just sort of rotate this knob to kind of get it going. Give it a little crank like that. Make sure my nav volume is off. Everything would be set depending on what we want to do. Let's see here, come down here. Looks good to me. And we have nothing on the DME. Don't have to worry about it too much. Atmospheric pressure today is 3026, so I'll go ahead and get that set on both sides. The Piper Archer 3 that I fly, you actually don't have that on that side. There's other stuff over on this side. One thing we can do, no air conditioner. Aww. This plane is actually really cool because it has an electric fan on it. One of the things I love about that is you can turn that sucker on and it kind of works, but it's actually above your head. Hear it? Sounds like everything got louder. Exactly. That's basically what that does in the real world too. So then, again, like I said, fun little details. I love little details. All right, so normally we get air traffic control permission. We'll assume that we've had it. We're going to go ahead and make sure this is leaned out. Whoa, wow. That does not happen on the real plane. Usually it's a little less sensitive to that. Go ahead and release our lovely parking brake here. A lot of times you can just hit it like that, and that should kick off the parking brake, which it does. That does not sound like an Archer 3, not going to lie. Whee! Gosh, there's a lot of traffic at this airport. Oh my goodness, this is the stuff of nightmares right here as a pilot. And if you're wondering why, if you look at the position of my wings versus my position of their wings, we would never do this. There we go, delightful. So let's go ahead and head over to the runway. I appreciate the fact that on a Piper Archer 3, you get this angergram that says that your pitot heat is turned off. It's interesting, because it's also a way to test to make sure that it works. I also like the fact that elevator trim is a separate button on this. Elevator trim on the real Archer is actually down here on the floor, so you have a pretty good idea of where that is. All right, let's pop out of MSG page here. Looking pretty good there. Heading down to the runway. Again, very, very, very easy plane to fly. No real shenanigans, no real twists to it. The one that I fly, yep, we've got the autopilot, everything all squared away. We'll make sure that's all good to go when we get a little bit closer there. All right, back that throttle up. Back that throttle up. And what we do over at Martha's Vineyard is we actually come down here and we spin around all the way out here, because there's always like big airliners and stuff like that incredibly here. Martha's Vineyard, by the way, if you're looking for which one of the 3 islands to check out, Block Island is the cheap one. All right, let's envision the mixture. We're going to go ahead and give it 2,000 revolutions per minute. Parking brake's already set. That looks good to me. Whoa, that dropped off a little bit. That would mean this wouldn't read correctly. All right, we are awesome. Everything's ready to go. System's good. Fuel tank's good. We're going to leave the fuel pump on for our initial climb out. A landing light comes on. We get permission to land. Squeeze the brakes, and we're going to get ourselves all lined up with the runway. Now, one thing I like about the Archer series here is if you look in the back, it actually uses something called a stabulator. See how the whole tail moves? That's really cool. Except if for some reason you're in a hurry during takeoff, there's the potential of basically ripping yourself off the ground, going 5 feet up, and then coming back down and getting a free landing out of your flight that day. So you just want to be kind of mindful of that. All right, let's get ourselves lined up. We're not using any flaps. This is plenty of runway to go. Usually they'd yell at us to get going. I'd say, let's get going. Piper pedals. 50, 55, nose up. So in the real world, in the summer here, meep, 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 because of the just the fact the air is just not as dense kind of a thing. I'm actually going to turn that down so I can hear myself think here. But what'll happen is, like I said, in the way up you hear the basically the stall warning going the entire time. And as you can see here, we are moving at Piper speeds. So this is about 70 knots here. I'm going to let the nose come down a little bit more. There we go. Okay, good. My right foot, by the way, in case you can't see it, you can see how far forward it is. That is 100% authentic for this aircraft. All right, we're going to go ahead and execute the turn. So basically what you do to turn on a climb is just let go of the pedal. And the plane just comes around on its own. Oh, man, this plane. I've got a few hours in this in the real world. Now, the interesting thing is this is a much quieter plane than the other plane that I was operating, which was the Cessna 182. Great plane, by the way, but this thing's just quieter and more economical. But it's different. It's different. All right, let's go swing around here. Again, nice and easy turn. Usually Martha's Vineyard, we don't do any turns until you get to 1,000 feet. So usually what they'll do is they'll say proceed on course or proceed direct or proceed west or something. And that basically means as soon as you get out of the way, just go, kind of a thing like that. And again, tons and tons of right foot to make this thing behave. So what we're looking at now is just kind of climbing. Like I said, it's a pretty typical fall day here. Low visibility, which is average. Again, nothing weird there. And you can hear the engine slowly speeding up on us. I usually don't have too much of a problem with that, but like I said, for the first part of the flight, I like to kind of fly zero turbulence today, which is amazing. A little bit of trim. Got to keep your foot on the rudder, though. All right, let's do it. Come over here. We're going to go ahead and press nav. And what you'll observe is nothing happens. The reason nothing happens, of course, is that autopilot kicked itself off as soon as we engaged it. So it's just kind of one of those little things that if you hear that sound, that is a universal sign for, oh no, you're going to have to fly the flight by hand, which is awesome because that's exactly what I like to do. All right, let's get ourselves all lined up here. No problem. A couple taps of trim. One of the cool things is if you pull out the Piper yoke itself, you actually have several little buttons on here. Let me go ahead and see this. You've got your microphone button. You have the CWS, which is awesome. You also have the Autopilot disconnect button. Again, it all depends on kind of what version of the Piper you have and kind of what you're using it for, depending on that particular flight. All right, everything's looking good to me. We're going to turn on the Autopilot. See that? See that? I love that. It's not the way the one that I fly works. Line ourselves back up with something a little more convenient. Now we can actually engage our modes. So press nav mode here. And we're going to go ahead and engage vertical speed mode. And it's going to capture my current vertical speed, which is way too high. So I'm going to come down to about 600 feet per minute. And what's going to happen is the aircraft is actually going to turn itself a little bit to the right here. It's going to start climbing a little bit. You can see the trim light. Now, that's actually not what the trim light's for, but you'll notice this is ready. And you also can see that nav and vertical speed is grabbed. Now, notice there's no altitude alert anywhere on this airplane. It's just not something that we have. Again, I don't know why we do traffic watch, and you can see it's all sort of borked. It's just kind of fun, right? But one of the things I do want to share is when you are using the autopilot on this, there's no altitude capture. You just have to press the button. And again, for us, we have a button down here and here, which makes it a little bit easier for us. All right, 3,000 feet. Let's go ahead and sneak over here to where it says alt. Ready, on my mark, get set, alt. Nose comes down, start pulling your throttle back. Delightful. Okay, so let me show you a couple quick little things here. With this aircraft, generally we cruise between 2,500 and 2,400 RPM. It's kind of the sweet spot anywhere in here. Again, anywhere in the green arc is technically okay based on producers here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my power a little bit to get to about 2,500 RPM, and it is very easy to get it there. And what we're going to do is we're going to lean the mixture. And the interesting thing with the mixture is in my early days, this massive exhaust gas temperature gauge was how I set the mixture, and you can definitely do it. But for this plane, I actually find it easier to do it by ear or by do it by RPM. So I've got 2,500 RPM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my mixture control. I'm going to start pulling this out. And what you're going to see is that my RPM starts to climb and my gas temperature starts to climb. See how it went up a little bit? See how that went up a little bit? I'm going to keep pulling this sucker out, keep pulling this sucker out. And you see how the needle starts getting really high and actually starts backing up? You see how the needle dropped? That means we've gone way too far. And you can actually see here from our temperature, it's almost 1,500 degrees. So I'm actually going to grab this. I'm going to push it back in again. See how that's back to peak about 2,550 RPM? I'm going to give it just a little bit more. And now I'm going to take my throttle. I'm going to crack my throttle back. So now if you take a look over here at our actual EGT, you can see our peak was probably around 1,600, and we're just almost perfect, 125 degrees Fahrenheit, rich of the peak temperature. And that's one of the things I like, is it's just that simple to do. So let's do a couple little cleanup things. Fuel pump's going to go ahead and come off. Landing light's going to kind of come off. And now we enjoy our nice, relaxing cruise over to Block Island. Yeah, there's a lot of really neat ships coming in and out of this. That's great. I think it's a little strange that they're all 10 feet from each other, but you can't win them all. All right, the island is off our nose right now. You can see it kind of in the haze, making it kind of simple for us. And what we want to do, of course, is we're going to start thinking about slowing down. We've got to think about coming down. This aircraft is very easy to descend. The problem is, as you probably noticed, there's no land underneath us right now. If we were to begin our descent, which is, who's this guy? Neat, never grind, that's funny. If we were to begin our descent right now, which would be perfectly acceptable, if we have an engine out, that means we have a lot longer swim to get back to the island. So just from a strategic perspective, generally in the real world, what I'll do is I'll try to get a lot closer before I do anything with the engine. One thing we can think about, though, is it's a little bit later there. It's almost 1 o'clock. We've been burning quite a bit of fuel off the left side here, and we can see we've burnt enough. But I'm not actually going to switch to the right tank until we get a little bit closer to our destination. All right, I've checked the weather. It looks like we're landing runway 10 today, which is going to be the opposite. Basically sneak into a left downwind and kind of swing around like that, depending, of course, on everything else, like in traffic. Again, it's a very, very popular destination, so you get a lot of people coming in and out there. All right, let's zoom in a little bit. It looks good to me. It's a good time to start thinking about coming down. Going down in this aircraft, absolute snap. Basically, don't change anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the mixture handle. I'm going to go ahead and slap that to the forward position. I'm going to turn my fuel pump on. I'm going to go ahead and pop over to the right fuel tank here. And we're going to start using some fuel out of that side. And I'm going to go ahead and make the autopilot take us down. Now, if we wanted to fly this by hand, we could. But if you're looking for that laziness, press vertical speed, kind of crank this down to about 5. Now, the thing you have to do here is you have to keep your RPM at 2,500 here. You can see it's kind of sneaking up to 2,500 on its own. It's a fixed pitch prop, so it does that nicely. The concept here is do not exceed the yellow line here and try to keep your RPM at 2,500 at the same time. Now, if you notice, if I look out the window, you realize I've created an impossible situation. As a matter of fact, if you want to look here, you can actually see that my flight path vector is telling me that I'm going to basically crash into the water on the far side. 100% correct. And that's one of the catches of this particular aircraft. If we pull that throttle back too far, we basically are going to shock cool the engine, and it's not going to like us very much for that. But likewise, if we push the nose down too far, you'll see that all of a sudden we're going to be way into the yellow arc here, which is a part of the fun. One of the strategies which I will use, again, if I'm dealing with islands here, I try to keep my airplane over the island whenever I do anything, especially power related. But one of the strategies you can use, of course, is basically get a nice little tour of the island, which is exactly what I intend to do. So now that the aircraft's all nice and trimmed down and it's at the correct power, all I have to do is basically make a room. So if I want to, I can come over to the nice little lagoon here. It's always neat to see everybody in their sailboat down here. I think it's kind of wild. There we go. And again, we're just going to keep that nice 120. Every once in a while, you can glance to just double check to make sure your RPM didn't come up or down. Sometimes it has a tendency to kind of sneak around depending on the density of everything. Like I said, pretty straightforward. Now, some people, of course, will be saying, hey, shouldn't you be worried about carb heat? You don't have to worry about carb heat at 2,500 RPM. The other thing is, because of the way they piped this particular aircraft, carburetor heat isn't really a thing unless the book says you suspect carburetor ice. Isn't that kind of weird? It's just one of those things, like, I don't think of it that way. I always think of it in terms of, oh, we're reducing power, carb heat on. Whereas this one's like, do you think there's ice? Put on carb heat. And that's basically what the carb heater's there for. All right, we're kind of sneaking into our left downwind here, giving ourselves plenty of room. Checking our altitude, we get about 2,000. We're looking at about 1,200 here, so we got plenty of room. Sort of a modified left downwind here. That's perfectly fine. Good to me, right? Not quite. There we go, right there. It's perfect. And again, you can see once you got this thing all nice and trimmed, it's very, very polite. They'll get a little fast here. This is very disorienting flying over water, as you can see. It's just like that in the real world, too. We're going to basically make this a very long final approach. And depending on traffic, you might not be able to pull something like this off. There's also windmills. I don't see any. Oh, well. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and take that turn. Disorienting flying over waters. You got to pull back a little bit, especially with this plane. There we go. Power's still basically perfect. Yep. You can actually pull this straight into a steep turn if you wanted. I don't recommend it. Looking at my window, we should be basically square to the runway, which we are. Start our turn in. Suck a little bit of energy out of the plane on this turn. Carburetor, I suspected. There it is. I knew it would come out eventually. Well, I guess we'll make the folks over at X-Plane happy. This plane wouldn't have a problem with that, though. All right. So now we're on final approach. I can see by the 4 white lights that we're way too high. That's okay. You probably noticed the reduction in power there. There's not much you can do about it. The goal here is just make it smooth. Whoa, crosswind. So it's okay. I understand. There we go. Good old X-Plane 12. All right, so what we're trying to do here is get our speed. We're going to do a bump here. I'm going to pull the nose up. We're going to pop 2 clicks of flaps, and we're going to let the nose come back down. See how we kind of drift upwards? Totally normal. Bring that last click of flaps in. And if I look at the side of the runway there, we can see very carefully. Nobody's in our way. You can see that it's not a bad sock. It's a disagreeable sock, but it's not a bad sock. All right, let's go bring that back. Going to come to the left. This plane, I find, in the real world, about 70 seems to be a pretty good speed. The book says like 67. It depends on who's in the plane. If it's just me flying it in the real world, 67's fine. Otherwise, 70's good. You're only going to float a little bit. At this speed, of course, of 80, it's not going to like us very much. There we go. One last checks. Gas, undercarriage, mixture, propeller, flaps, lights, speed. Check, check, chickity check. All right, we're good. And you can see this thing just bleeds speed. There we go. There's our 70 knots. Actually, I can push the nose down a little bit here. You can see they cut some of the trees down. Got a lot of right foot going on right now. You can't see it, but like, if you go like, you can see how far over that pedal is. There we go. 70 knots. This is really weird. I never land 1-0 in Block Island. Come on. Come on. Wow, you're getting a crosswind landing today, too. Throttle idle. And we're going to go play down. Watch out for the ground effect. Watch out for the ground effect. And we're down. Keep that aileron down. Aileron down. Aileron down. Oh, my goodness. Aileron down. Not awful. Not awful. Whoa. What is with the pedals on this? Oh, it's because it's a third-party aircraft. Yeah, so the real world, the rudder pedals are not that sensitive. Or I should say the nose wheel steering is not that sensitive. All right, look at that. We call that victory, folks. Go sneak our way over here. Of course, our airplane, I'll go ahead and pull that back. One of the things I do is I go ahead and get the plane all kind of ready to do its thing here. Oh, that's fine. And of course, I wonder if the restaurant's open. It's after 12:30, so the restaurant, I think, is closed. So we're not going to be able to get lunch today, but that's okay. All right, let's go ahead and get some brakes going. Normally, of course, you'd have to push the plane in the last spot. So we're going to go and get everything squared away here. Basically, undo everything you started with. One of the tricks that I've learned, if you increase the power here, do both of these at the same time. Nice. That was a weird sound. All right, pull that to idle. Put our fuel off. Reach above our head. Chase the switches. And enjoy.